Klaus, I want to thank you very, very much for, and I want to welcome you to the first Greek Rudimental Drumming Festival. It's really a pleasure, an honor to have you here and kickstart the event. Please allow me to address the Greek audience in Greek a bit.
For sure, for sure.
Λοιπόν, έχουμε live τον Claus Hessler, έναν καταπληκτικό παίκτη και έναν άνθρωπο με τον οποίο καταρχήν έχουμε κάνει και ένα interview στα rudiments. Εγώ το γνώρισα περισσότερο από το βιβλίο του Camp Duty Update, ένα καταπληκτικό βιβλίο με πάρα πολλά traditional κείμενα. Ο Klaus έχει κάνει μια καταπληκτική δουλειά και το Masterclass θα είναι πάνω σε αυτό. Οπότε λοιπόν δίνω το λόγο στο Klaus. Klaus, thank you. Please proceed with your presentation.
Okay, very cool. I mean, first of all, I'm happy to do this for you, Alexander, and thanks for putting all of this together. I know what sort of effort it really takes, and all the organization and all the nerves that go into. Then all of a sudden, technology is not working the way it should, and your blood pressure goes up to 200.
Sky limit, yeah.
It really is. So lean back.
All right.
I don't need to work now. Just step back for a second.
All right.
Perfect. Now, seriously speaking, back to the business. I'm happy to do this for you guys here. Let me angle my camera a bit more so you can see a bit more of this here. First of all, I mean, drumming, and especially rudimental drumming, is something of which I think it really connects a lot of European countries. And just a little story on the side. Yesterday I was having a Skype lesson with a drummer from Sweden who told me a little story that he had been involved with all kinds of military rudimental drumming signals, and he thought of them as being of Swedish origin until he connected with a Swiss friend, and they found out they actually played the same stuff. So there's a lot of common ground, a lot of connection all throughout Europe, with us playing basically the same or very similar material that can be traced back to the very same roots. And I think this is just something very unique that connects us rudimental drummers in a very special way. And you may be aware that I put together a book which is called Camp Duty Update. Looks like this. And in this little presentation, I would like to give you some little, say, behind the scenes, behind the curtain information of, I mean, not just what you can expect when you get the book, but also what my reasons were that made me write this book. And one of them actually was to bring together music and the drumming. That was a very important aspect because, I mean, most drummers that I met actually did not have an idea what is actually the five melody of the three camps and the downfall of Paris and Dixie and all of that. So for some funny, strange reason, the drumming and the music was separated at a certain point, and reuniting the drumming and the music, the five melody, I think is a very important aspect, because once you understand about the melody that your drumming should accompany, you learn a lot of important aspects about how your drumming should be phrased. And there's also a little handout that goes with this presentation. I'm not sure if you were spreading that, Alexander, or if, I mean, in case you guys don't have it, feel free to approach us and we will share that with you.
Okay.
Back to the business, the reconnection of fife and drums also is responsible for certain, say, authentic aspects of interpretation. And a while ago, I had the pleasure to have dinner with possibly the last living student of Charlie Wilcoxon at age of 90 plus years. And I mean, it was so much fun to talk rudiments and drumming with this person by the name of Sperry Karas, by the way, great big band drummer, but with strong rudimental roots, as he studied drumming with Charlie Wilcoxon. And Sperry actually pointed out some interesting aspect, which is important for the first piece and its ingredients that I would like to work a little on with you. And the pattern I'm referring to is called the double drag or the double drag tap. And as you may have learned already, quite some people would think the double drag should be phrased like so. With the double strokes relatively dense against the next note. Now, what Wilcoxon was always trying to transport in his lessons was a very open, Civil War, ancient rudimental drumming style like phrasing. And in Wilcoxon's first book, and I put together a little excerpt from that passage in the handout, that was the little thin yellow book. It's called Modern Rudimental Swing Solos, and he refers to a little say learning guide or a little help, if you will, in terms of the double drag should sound go to bed, Tom.
Go to bed, eh? Go to bed.
Tom, go to bed, Tom, go to bed, Tom. At a slower tempo. So again, Wilcoxon was not about go to bed, Tom, go to bed, Tom. I mean, in case you would have said it like this, Tom would never go to bed because he would not understand what you were trying to say. But it's just interesting to also learn that Wilcoxon also, although his notation may leave room for misinterpretation, but what Charlie Wilcoxon really was about was the interpretation of and that was basically the reason why I added this little paragraph that shows you go to bed, Tom, giving you the idea that he didn't want to that he didn't want it to sound like this. I mean, you can do that if you're playing a relatively small snare drum, but imagine the guys back then, they used to be performing on 16 by 16 or 17 by 15 drums in that style and in that size about. And for instance, the favorite field drum of Sanford Moeller was sized 17 by 20 inches deep, 17 inches wide. Now, I'm a relatively small person. I was once trying to play a replica of these Moeller drums, but I cannot play it because the drum is scratching on the floor because I'm simply just too small. I would have to stand like on a little wooden box or something because at my height, I could never play the drum. So, I mean, just some interesting info on the side. So, back to my reasons why I came up with the idea of writing this book, Camp Duty Update. I was starting to realize the connections, as I mentioned before, between different rudimental patterns, and one big, say, parallel or common ground was understanding that a Swiss Tagwacht, for instance, and the dinner call has a lot of common ground. So you can pretty much look at the dinner call or the roast beef, as it's also called, which was a signal to call soldiers for the midday meal. So it was not dinner in terms of an evening meal as we understand it today, but it was really calling soldiers to the midday meal. Today we would possibly say lunch. But anyhow, it's the dinner call, but the dinner call and the Swiss Tagwacht or the French Diane, which was also played to wake up people, pretty much draws from that same rudimental root phrase, which all circulates around the double drag and its proper authentic phrasing. So to give you an idea about the dinner call, I would maybe even say, let me play the piece for you with the music, so you have an idea what this should sound like. So here's one of the play-alongs that come with Camp Duty Update, and I'm just going to play this for you. It's not a long piece, so no time to lean back that much. Okay, here we go.
Wow, that was great.
Thank you. Now, with that in mind, you can notice that once you play the double drag in this open style of interpretation, it gets much more of a rolling, fluid, moving expression as opposed to playing it like this. Which you would possibly assume it would be played like if you only watch the notation. So notation usually is a big aspect of the questions I get many times about this, because people would say, yeah, I get the point, but why is it written then this way? My standard answer is, there is no piece of written music which is not subject to interpretation. You have to know the style, you have to know the music, and once you do know the style and the music, you find ways to give the music its true, say, expression and the true, authentic way of phrasing. And this holds true for any style of music, no matter if it's classical, orchestral stuff, if it's jazz, if it's any sort of folk / world music, Brazilian music, Cuban music, African music, all of that has its special way of phrasing. And once you know that, you have the chances and the options to really make it sound authentic. And rudimental drum and fife music makes no exception here. So that is a very important thing to understand. What you also get to notice is that that there's a special connection between the double drag and the 9-stroke roll, and in that in that script I was putting together, you see this little box on the bottom of page 2, which pretty much shows you the core information of the dinner call. So if you can play this box, you can pretty much play the whole tune. And as you see, it's all the top line of the box shows you the original notation. The bottom line shows you a structure which is all written out using quintuplets. And that is actually something that I began to adapt after having seen. Let me check this out here. After having seen books like these. I'm not sure if anybody knows those. These are the Le Tambour d'Ordonnance by Robert Goutte. There are several volumes of that. And in the French, long story short, in the French drumming tradition, you find a lot of methodology which is built on the grid of 5. Swiss drummers usually don't use it that much. At least I don't have any information that this is a very common ground when people teach Basel drumming or Swiss rudimental drumming. The Swiss guys usually don't do it, but I think the five, actually, the grid of five, the quintuplet, comes very close to where the actual interpretation then really is. So what you can do with this little box on the bottom of page 2 is it actually sounds like so. One, two, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. So if you get this together, you learn a lot about authentic phrasing, and once you can play this box, you can pretty much play all of the dinner call, and that gives you some sort of a good starting point to make further discoveries. Now, if at any point anybody is having questions, I'm not sure if you see any of these on your chat.
Yeah, I keep monitoring the chat. So far we have many people watching. I haven't seen any specific question regarding your presentation, but if something arises, I will tell you immediately.
Yep, you just tell me. I'm open to this question answer thing at any time.
All right.
I just enjoy talking about my hobby because, I mean, as you may know, rudimental drumming is not like my my first thing. Actually, I'm a drum set player.
But it seems to be your first thing. You make it seem so natural.
That's what I try to do. Okay, thank you. I mean, so far with the dinner call, so that should give you some interesting idea what the piece is actually, and
yeah, the interpretation you did on the double track tap was very interesting, because many people interpret it the wrong way. You know the wrong way, tra, traka, ra, raka, which doesn't have so much flow in it.
Yeah.
So if you did it the other way, like the way you showed, it has a better flow.
I think it really has, and it used to be played like that. I mean, there's evidence it was played like that. I'm not making this up. It's not my, it's not like my personal version of playing this. I'm just imitating I'm just making an imitation of how people actually played it, like, I don't know, 150, 200 years ago. Yeah. And at times, the discussion also is opened towards the word drag. What is that really? And some people would say, yeah, it's called drag because it sounds like drag, and this is why it is like that. Honestly, there's a lot of information which tells you that drag more relates to the action in terms of dragging the stick across the drum, and when you imagine that, the word drag pretty much, I mean, since it describes the motion you execute, it more speaks for that open kind of interpretation and not for this kind of interpretation, which it really is not.
So how did it evolve to this?
Did it evolve to what? To what?
You said, if I understand correctly, that it started like the motion, and then it became to be something more quick, right?
I think that is more or less something which for the most part classical drummers came up with. I mean, if a classically trained drummer sees information like that, he thinks of any orchestral passage. He doesn't think of rudimental music, which is played as you march through the field with the big drum suspended by a sling hanging at your side, he thinks of himself being in the orchestral pit with a 14 by 5 Dresden drum, which speaks totally different as a 17 by 15 Cooperman drum.
Yeah. What is the weight of these drums, of the big drums? Are they heavy?
They are relatively light, I should say. A classical material used would actually be ash wood. So they are relatively light, but they just sound incredible. Now I have two Coopermans here. This one over here is 17 by 15, and this is 15 by 15. Now, just to give you an idea about the 17, this is sounding like so.
Wonderful.
Now,
this was great, yeah.
Now imagine what this drum would sound like if you try to play the double drag like this.
Yeah.
The drum doesn't speak like that. It doesn't.
Yes, at all. You're right.
It rather does this. Ah. So the instrument itself kind of forces you to go into that open Civil War kind of ancient European style of rudimental drumming, and not really this dense sort of prop. That's more or less something which, as I said before, a classically trained drummer would possibly think, because he all of a sudden gets into that mode of, oh, I think of an etude of Maurice Goldenberg or Vic Firth, or I think of Scheherazade, or I think of any orchestral passage that I would usually play on a much different drum. I think that is more or less responsible for this kind of a gap between how people sometimes play material like this and how it's really supposed to be played.
Yeah, we have a comment.
Yeah.
Someone, Dimitris Stergiou, says that Charlie Wilcoxon in modern rudimental swing solos mentions that the drag is 3-stroke rough.
It actually says 3-stroke. Sometimes Wilcoxon was referring to a 3-stroke roll, or back in these days they would still refer to a ruff, because the ruff was back then something different as it is today. And that is created by another misunderstanding, because the English word ruff actually originated out of the Swiss German word ruf. So for instance, a Fünferruf in Swiss drumming would be something like this. And a 3-stroke ruff would then be, and not this, right? You don't change the frequency or the density of the notes actually. So the old meaning of the English word ruff actually came out of the German word ruf, which describes an open roll of different length.
Yeah, is this roll singles or doubles? Because sometimes rough we mention singles, right?
That is correct. In the old days, the ruff used to be this: left, left, right, or right, right, left. In Swiss German, a Dreierruf, or the French would say a Ra, deux, trois. So it's so those ruf exercises always used to be based on double strokes. In modern rudimental nomenclature, that meaning was switched and changed towards single strokes. So if you talk about a ruff today, it's more or less versions of the single stroke roll of different length. So if you say a 4-stroke ruff would be alternating right, left. Information, and not something which is based out of double strokes.
All right, very interesting. Claus, let me ask you, what is your favorite piece on your book?
My favorite. Interesting. I mean, there are quite some. It's a bit difficult for me to make a decision, but I like the slow Scotch, another slow Scotch version. I also like actually another downfall version, and I mean, most of them I was trying to sort of work through a number of variations based on the ancient melody, but bringing in collapsed rudiments or typical Swiss or French influences to make the piece different and more exciting. It was actually a field of learning and studying for myself as well. So what you have in hands when you have the book is actually what I practiced for a certain amount of time. So it's actually my practicing diary, if you will.
Sorry, I want to pause you a bit. I want to address the Greek audience again. Yeah. Για όσους έχουν απορίες σχετικά με την παρουσίαση που κάνει ο Κλάους, εννοείται, όπως έγραψε ο φίλος ο Δημήτρης σε ένα σχόλιο, έτσι και εσείς μπορείτε να σχολιάσετε, εννοείται, γιατί ένας από τους λόγους που γίνεται live η παρουσίαση είναι αυτός, δηλαδή να μπορούμε να έχουμε και αλληλεπίδραση με τους καλεσμένους, και είναι πολύ σημαντικό αυτό. Οπότε ήδη κάνει ο Κλάους την παρουσίαση, και στη συνέχεια και τώρα θα θέλουμε να έχουμε και το δικό σας feedback. Okay, sorry for this, Klaus.
No problem. So I still wanted to make that, to complete the puzzle, I wanted to make that connection between the dinner call and a Swiss Tagwacht, because there is still that important connection. And if you think about a Tagwacht or a reveille, as you would say in English, this is again a piece which is used to wake up people, to wake up soldiers, inhabitants of a city. And there is, just to point out the similarities between the dinner call and the Tagwacht, I gave you a little excerpt of the Radak Tagwacht, which has been composed by the late great Dr. Fritz Berger, and he actually used a lot of French influences on that. So the piece was called Radak because it was a dedication to a French drumming academy. So it was originally written Ra de apostrophe Dak, Ra de Ak, the Ra de Académie. So it was dedicated to that academy of French drummers, and a lot of the material in there is not typically Swiss. So again, if you imagine the dinner call again, which sounded like this. And so forth. And now you imagine the intro section of the Radak Tagwacht. Let me play that for you real quick. And so forth.
Great, that was great.
you would notice the similarities and how much common ground there actually is between the dinner call and the Swiss way of waking up people. So that was something that actually impressed me a lot about the way how all this drumming material got spread all over Europe, and then with certain parts of it also appearing again in the US, of course, because, I mean, we have to agree on the aspect that rudimental drumming actually is something which is mostly of European origin, and not really something that was discovered and invented on American soil, although most people would look at it this way, but that actually is not the case, because, I mean, it simply came from Europe, from France and Switzerland, and went to the UK and made it over to the US, to make the super long story super short. Okay. Now, what I still did with Camp Duty Update was to give people different drumming materials with the same melody. So on the next page, you find an updated version for the dinner call, which still uses the double drag tap related material, but in a much greater variety. Maybe let me play that for you real quick, and you're gonna see what the connection is. So let me find the music here, and
just to say for the audience, the music is included in your book, correct?
The music is included in the book, so you have play-alongs in different tempos, and you have a played version with me and the fife on all of the tunes, and play-alongs with just the fife and click on all of the tunes. And the new versions even even come with an extra booklet that gives you the five melodies.
Oh yeah, this is very interesting.
So you can have your friends on five and perform together, pretty much, which is quite exciting, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so here's another dinner call. Check this out.
Yeah, this one was much more difficult than the simple one, but it was great.
Of course, it's much more difficult, but you still notice how the drumming connects with the music. I'm not trying to how should I say? I'm not trying to play against the music too much. I'm still sort of supporting the music and respecting certain passages, and just trying to find out, okay, how far can I go with that? And the ideas used for that, I mean, just to show you that, can be found in another page where it says, it's page 5 of the script actually, where it says another versions in Camp Duty Update, and you have like a little collection of pieces, and you notice how I'm changing the original patterns. So what you get to see is, for instance, if you check out the third line, which is letter C, you get to see the original double drag tap structure in the left side column, which is and in case I expand the pattern in terms of I make even distances between all the notes played, it creates a septuplet. So I can make the switch from this here to and back. double drag, expand it, double drag, expand it. And in the very same way, in the third column where it says collapsed version, I am sort of changing the distances and again making the second note of a double stroke the flam for the next note. So this time, out of the original double drag, you get this. Still the same sticking. And this I found quite amazing, because what you feel in your hands when you play that is still the same pattern. You don't change anything about the order of the strokes you play. It still stays the same pattern, and especially when you switch back and forth between this and this, you still preserve the position of the accents. So the musical cornerstones of the phrase itself are not really changed, which I think is interesting, and also quite some exciting aspect in the learning process of all of that. Yep.
Yeah, this is very interesting. And just a quick comment from our friends here that are watching in Greece. Yeah. They admire how relaxed you are playing, and how wonderful your flow is.
Great, thank you. This is only because I took my pills this morning.
All right, great. So I have a question for you. I was listening to your recordings of the Camp Duty update, the ones you played with, and I noticed your interpretation of the 7-stroke roll. If I'm not mistaken, it is much more delicate than the other notes you are playing after. I don't know if I'm telling this correctly, but I've noticed that you are dropping the volume a bit, which is very beautiful, it's very nice, and you are not making a crescendo, which is a very interesting interpretation.
I mean, are you referring to a special passage, or
no, just a general comment. I find them very, very nice and very, very beautiful to hear, because I'm listening a difference, something like that, which is very I admire very much. I was trying to imitate it.
Very cool. I mean, what I'm trying to do with quite some of the pieces also is simply just an aspect of trying to imitate things, and trying to copy certain stuff that I found with French or Swiss pieces into these American English pieces, and I still have this other example in the handout still, which is about another slow Scotch. So the slow Scotch, for instance, is I mean the original version is boring is a very harsh word for it, but actually there's nothing happening. So I was thinking, okay, I like the melody and I like the piece itself because it has some sort of dynamic shape with which a lot of other pieces in the Camp Duty don't have. So what can I possibly try to do with that piece? Because I like the melody, and I thought to myself, I would actually like to copy certain things that I have learned in a Swiss retraite. So in case you're not familiar with that, I also I think I also copied some retraite stuff into your into the script that you have in front of you.
Yeah, just to mention about the script, in Greek, ο Klaus έχει στείλει ένα PDF το οποίο θα είναι διαθέσιμο προς όλο το κοινό σχετικά με την παρουσίαση που κάνει και θα το ανεβάσουμε στην σελίδα την Greek Rudimental Drumming. Sorry for that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. And with these retraites, for instance, I mean, the common thing that the Swiss retraite has is there's quite a complicated intro-outro section, and then a 10-bar form. And this 10-bar form is always retained, but it goes from very simple to very complex, but it still stays in that 10-bar form with basically the same rhythmic dynamic cornerstones in short form. So a typical, say, what you have in front of you is what Berger quotes as a retraite theme from the Swiss ordinance from 1799, and that intro sounds like this. So that's pretty much how the piece starts. There's the intro and the first verse that I just played, and this first verse is starting to be more complicated and complicated and complicated, and the last verse of the retraite again goes back to that easy entry first verse. So I was trying to copy that into another slow Scotch, and so in the very same way, I was bringing together an intro with more roll-like stuff, and you also have retraites which use more roll intros. In case you work through some of that, you will notice for sure. Boy, I can play the piece for you real quick, so that should be fun. And it's not like super long. So here's another slow Scotch. Has a 4-bar count off in 3.
that was great. So,
Thank you. I messed around a little bit in the intro, but anyhow, we're all human after all. So
yes, of course. Just a quick question Peter has. Are the melodies available for purchase by themselves? If you already have this great book, he mentions, and he wants to thank you for this wonderful book. That's Peter Beiling.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for the flowers. I'm not sure if the flute melody, if the five melody is available separately, but if you send me a kind email, I would possibly send you one.
All right. So the underlined word is kind. If you want a kind email, so yeah, that's great. All right then. I think that this is all the time we had for today.
Yep.
A minute to address the Greek audience. Αυτή ήταν η παρουσίαση του Claus Hessler, τον οποίο τον ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. Γι' αυτό ήταν πάρα πολύ χρήσιμο. Σας προτείνω όλους να πάρετε το βιβλίο του. Ειλικρινά είναι ένα βιβλίο το οποίο εμένα με βοήθησε πάρα πολύ. Το Camp Duty Update είναι καταπληκτικό. Συνεχίζουμε μετά με τον Mark Riley. Claus, I want to thank you again for being here in our first Greek Rudimental Drumming Festival. It's very important for you to have you here and kickstart the event. And we hope to see you soon in Greece.
Yep, I hope so too. Be well, everybody. Stay away from the virus.
Yep.
Keep being active and enjoy the drums. And if you want, like, follow me on Instagram. Check out my books and stuff. claushessler.com. There's more stuff happening. Live in person and online as well. So I hope to meet you all somewhere on Planet Drum, be it only through the computer or be it like in real life from person to person.
Yes. Thank you again. Bye bye.